Hello, and welcome back to me feeling the need to reinvent myself every single time I draw. This is a long, venerable tradition on this channel and in my life. Um, so I'm gonna catch you up on what I was doing. Um, I wanted to experiment with rendering. So it's the kind of rendering where I've done it for highlights, kind of, but I've never completely leaned into it before. Um, so I just did a sketch real quick, and I wish I didn't because I actually like how the rendering turned out, like the shading and the colors and all that. But then like it's all built on this kind of questionable scaffolding. So I do regret this whole section, and it's staring me right in the face right now, man. So yeah, I don't think it's like too bad, but I wish I'd done line art for it. I wish I'd, kind of smooshed some things around on her face and all that. I feel like it could have gone way better and been really good. Uh, yeah, but it's always harder to go back later and change things after you shaded. So in the end, I thought about doing that, and I didn't end up feeling like it was something I could really get away with. So it's kind of, yeah, kind of ends up with the sketch staying permanently. Uh, So, an explanation for what I'm even doing. I've done this before, like I mentioned, but it's like you kind of use the freehand lasso tool and then one of your kind of I use the soft airbrush, I think, in like a really large setting and then just kind of airbrush it in, but like sometimes more on one edge than the other and stuff like that. Um and I was doing that for like all of the shading here. Uh, it just kind of adds this like overlapping shapes and these harsh edges. You'll see. It's about to happen after I block in the oh no, I have to fix the eyes. Not fix, detail. Detail. Yeah. Um so I'm about to once I do this, I'm about to block in a kind of a shape, a color shape for all the whole figure. God, I keep futzing with the shading and all that. I'm gonna do that later. Why would you add that to the sketch me? Just call yourself out because you don't know the future. Don't you ever just do that when you're looking back at what you past you did? Like, how couldn't you know what you were going to do? So, yeah, I completely skipped ahead, huh? So I kind of add a lot of shading to the dress, which I don't regret. I do like this kind of texture it added. Um, yeah, so far she's kind of looking down a little bit, which is why you can see so much of her hair. Um, But yeah, that's a big part of why I'm not so sure about the sketch. One is just the texture. I don't this style of shading really lends itself to like this kind of smooth, interesting shape based thing. Here's my lining. There I'm doing the color blocking. Um and I feel like just with this kind of rough sketch, it kind of takes away from that. It takes away from the neatness of the technique. It doesn't kind of play to its strengths, which I regret. Um, but also I just wasn't very careful about where I place things. Like I feel like that's a bit of a tricky angle to work with, like with her face. And I did it decently, but it's not great. The angle is not great. Um, so then because the face doesn't read like quite a severe downcast as like her the top of her head, you end up it ends up making her look like her head is just huge. But it's yeah, maybe her hair is a little fluffy. It's fluffy. Obviously, it's been caught by the breeze. But yeah, here I am where I'm kind of lassoing things and adding. Uh, I'm doing actually all of them with the same color now. I'll go back later and kind of use an overlay layer. I'm not sure if an overlay layer is the right one. I messed around with a lot of different layers, styles. The sketch is on multiply. I do add like a few that aren't lassoed, just like kind of, yeah, there it is. Just like adding highlights to areas that are highlighted. more generally. But you can see I'm kind of building up texture as well as volume by using these kind of overlapping lasso sections. Um, I You could also do this by like drawing in or painting in a kind of a section, then like putting it at a lower opacity and probably merging it down because Procreate has a limited number of layers. But I think that would just be a little slower and you'd miss out on like some of the variation in opacity that you can easily get by having the kind of the brush kind of only barely hit the edge of it. So you'd have to paint it in and then erase it out, and it would just be a little more finicky, I think, to do it that way. Although you would have more control because it would be more easy to erase rather than just having to redo the selection. So pros and cons. But for reference for time, I managed to get all of this done in about an hour and a half, and it would have been a lot longer if I cleaned up the sketch and made it like actually nice. Um, which is why I decided against it in the first place. But again, I'm not sure if that was a good move. Um, this kind of rendering style actually went decently fast. Um, uh, yeah, I'm about to add some more kind of dimension to her face because it was a little bothersome. Uh, but to kind of see, I know it's coming, so I keep trying to say I'm about to do something, and then I'm like, oh yeah, I did a bunch of other stuff first. Oops. Um, yeah, that selection I would to kind of help the shape of the face come along. Um, that was what I was talking about. Here I am like, oh, I'm doing all this on a white background and it looks terrible. So I decided to kind of apply a similar method here, although leaving, yeah, some areas kind of more transparent than others. That's the other reason I kind of do this way. It's pretty intuitive to change with play with the opacities like this. Yeah, here I am looking at a million layer styles and being like, oh, I don't know. I think at this point I might be on color or am I on overlay already? Yeah, I was really struggling with kind of bringing color in. See, I kept messing it up a little bit when I was filling in that. Yeah, so I kept redoing it. Um, yeah, here's where I'm not sure about that layer. I don't like what it did with kind of the blue in her eyes because it was like going over this like skin tone neutral color. So I feel like it just really took down the blue and really dimmed it in a way I didn't like. I could have done another layer on top of it, but I didn't. So that's on me. That's on me. Up close, I like how it looks, but when I'm kind of zoomed out, they don't pull enough attention to her face. I don't feel. Yeah, here I am because I'm not fully happy with the layer style. I go through all of them. Now I'm like, no, this is the best option. Um, Here I'm adding some more yellow to her hair to make it clear that it's similar to her skin tone, but she's like an ash blonde kind of, or like platinum almost, with this like cool toned blonde hair. Um, Adding that to her eyebrows and her eyelashes too, to help them pop and match. Um, yeah, just kind of scribbled for the bottom lashes, but I'm gonna actually clean up the eyelashes a little bit and add some actual lining there. I'm gonna, yeah, adding a little bit of the white for the eyes. Um, yeah, thinking about changing stuff for all that. Here I'm gonna add, yeah, I picked the same color that I used for the sketch, but I also had it on multiply. So when you put multiply over multiply, it gets a bit darker. But here I'm just kind of adding a little more details to the eyes, cleaning them up a little bit because I don't know, it just bothered me how messy they were. I don't do the whole thing. I don't fully commit to cleaning her eyes up either. It's kind of a weird halfway situation now, but I do think that it, kind of darkening them like this and cleaning them up a little bit did help them a little bit. But yeah, coming up on the end now. We're about reaching where it got to. So thank you for watching. Uh, I'll be back next week unless something horrible happens to me or I get too busy. Probably the latter. Thank you.